What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today, Bitcoin is seeing some upside price action. 2 green daily candles in a row so far, what seems like a continuation pattern of the sideways range. Almost a spitting image of the last pullback. This is shaping up to be quite a large range. So range traders are having a field day, while hodlers are getting frustrated. And people holding altcoins also getting frustrated. They want to see just more action. It's not like we're behind. There's nothing wrong. We're actually performing better than ever in terms of performance to previous all-time high. This is Bitcoin's best performance of any cycle in that metric. So Bitcoin is just settling up at the all-time high. My bias is still bullish. The trend is your friend. We are still creating higher lows since the beginning of 2023, higher lows. Now, something else that I find very interesting about this trend is that every time we created a higher low and basically put in a bottom within this trend, it was always on a weekly candle with a huge wick, big demand wick. And I was posting about this on Twitter. Since the beginning of 2023, on the weekly chart, every low was placed with a wick. This wick right here comes in. That wick represents demand because the price came down quickly within that week. And by the end of that same week, it was bought right back up. The market loved those lower levels, and that was the low. That was the bottom. The bottom was in. And the next one here, a series of demand wicks, a horizontal low. The bottom was in. The next one, a large wick to the downside. Bottom was in. Once again. And looking at where we are now, a couple major wicks with a higher low, this could be representing the next low. Is the bottom in? So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. Is the bottom in? Now I want to jump to something else, a couple indicators that I publish on TradingView that have to do with the current theme. And that theme is the election, politics, Trump, Biden, all this stuff you're seeing in the news. I figured it would be interesting to have something on TradingView where you could see when an election was and which administration was in office, the inauguration. And so that's what I did. It's called US Presidential Elections Names and Dates. And it actually goes way back in time. It doesn't just stop here. This is just the end of the Bitcoin chart. And I find it most interesting to look at this with the S&P because you can go way back. This indicator goes all the way back to Roosevelt, the 1930s. Starting off with Eisenhower, we are going up into the election and inauguration. Eisenhower's second term, up into the election and inauguration. Going to Kennedy, we're going up as well. Going to Lyndon B. Johnson, same thing. Going to Nixon, same thing. Going to Nixon's second term, same thing. Jimmy Carter, same thing. Ronald Reagan, up. Ronald Reagan's second term, up. George H.W. Bush, slightly lower high, but we're going up into it. Bill Clinton, up. Bill Clinton's second term, up. George W. Bush, up. Bush's second term, up. We go to Obama. This is the only one that has a bad start. That is because of the 2008 housing crisis. So that is the anomaly on the chart. And then you see Barack Obama's second term, up and away. Donald Trump, up and away. Joe Biden, up and away. Just about every single time. Now, that is a pretty high hit rate throughout history. I mean, is it going to be different this time? Who knows? If you go back to the 50s or the 60s into the 70s and 80s, you'll notice that in this era, when we had a sideways market, inflation issues, all that kind of stuff, every time there was an election, the market did well, but right when the president got in office, we tank every single time. That was that era. It does begin to change as you go forward in time. It's not always the same exact outcome. But again, going into the election, it's usually almost always bullish. And in recent years, we've continued up past the election. And so it's difficult to say exactly how it's going to play out differently now. I mean, it's anyone's guess, but I just wanted to give you guys some context and a little bit of a review on the performance of the markets during these times. Now, going back to Bitcoin. So the first halving, the election is happening right during the halving for the Obama second term. And we just continue to trend up. Donald Trump election, inauguration, the halving takes place right before, and we are up and away afterward. Joe Biden, the halving takes place much earlier here than it did in these past 2 cycles. And we're closer to the top when the president gets in office. Right now, we've had the halving, we're at the all-time high. It is quite possible that Bitcoin could find a top in January during the inauguration, right? Which would make it similar to that 1960s, 70s range, because it's happening well before the election begins, if we're just going to analyze it this way. But also, if you bring out my halving cycle profit indicator, which is the model of showing the most likely zone for profit taking, around the 80th week is usually the most accurate area for the profit end, right? In the 2014 cycle, we actually hit a top closer to the 40th week and then came down for a lower high at the 80th week. 2018, it was right near the 80th week, and we hit 69,000 right before the 80th week after the halving, right? So it's halving, 40 to 80 weeks, profit zone. Halving, 40 to 80 weeks, halving, 40 to 80 weeks. Current halving, the 40th week lands on January of 2025. And that is also going to be the inauguration month. So, I mean, that it does have historic context in 2 different ways. So we may be looking at a January top for Bitcoin. And again, it's not really like an opinion thing. It's not like some people are going to say, oh, like, how could you say that? I don't know. People get upset about these types of things. They just want the bull market. They just want me to say the bull market's going to go forever, basically, but it never will. So I'm just basing this off of the usual time that we find a peak around the 80th week after the halving. And also looking at it from the election cycle perspective, it lines up with January of 2025. But that is just my current guess. We are far away from these events taking place, so things can change. My opinion can change. The markets can go up heavily from now into that point in time. We may see a new year surge, and maybe it continues longer than January. But again, my opinion could change if things just play out differently than I expect. But Bitcoin is performing really well right now. It's sitting near the all-time high. What we're looking at right now for Bitcoin is simply an all-time high consolidation. And we are forming support along the previous monthly resistance right now. I mean, this is an amazing chart on the monthly, but this is happening earlier than usual in the cycle. So that's kind of why I'm saying what I'm saying. It lines up with the halving cycle profit, lines up with the election. January of 2025 is currently the zone of interest, but it depends. If Bitcoin goes sideways for a lot longer than expected, then maybe we go up further past January 2025. But I just wanted to share with you guys these ideas, these thoughts, these possible scenarios, and also the indicators that I just published. And it's going to plot the election once it takes place, and it'll also plot the name once they're inaugurated, so definitely check these out. But just to go back to what we were talking about earlier, the demand wicks are looking pretty promising. This is usually where we mark the bottom on this uptrend. And Bitcoin also, the daily RSI is something to keep in mind. We may spend a little bit of time fighting this resistance, and that may give us that consolidation. But ultimately, I think we're looking for a major RSI breakout in the coming month or 2. Smash like, subscribe to this channel. Be sure to sign up for Kraken Pro. The link is below. Be sure to join Patreon. It is the first of the month, which means it's the best day of the month to join. You can save a lot by doing the annual discount. You can read the description, check out the details, and I'll see you all in the next video.